The film opens with Eloise Turner dancing in a newspaper dress. She dreams of becoming a fashion designer just like her late mother. She picks up a picture with two women and looks up to find a woman standing behind her in the mirror. It turns out that the woman is one of the women in the picture. However, the woman in the mirror is not real, and disappears as someone calls out to Eloise. She runs down the stairs and meets her grandmother, Peggy, who gives her a letter. She becomes very excited as she opens the letter because she is moving to London. In the next scene, Ellie is packing her things in preparation for the trip when Peggy comes in and picks up the picture she was looking at earlier. Peggy then tells her about her time spent in London. She offers Ellie to take the picture with her, but Ellie refuses. Paige then tries to warn Ellie about London, but Ellie tries to convince her that she can handle it. The next day, Ellie leaves her room to go on the trip. She says goodbye to her mother's ghost in the mirror and starts to get a taxi. At the last minute, Paige gives her a package, which she later learns is a picture from the previous day. When Ellie finally arrives in London, she takes a taxi to her destination. On the way, the taxi driver starts making offensive comments. She gets suspicious and asks him to drop her off at a shop. As she gets into the taxi, she watches him from a spot to see if he leaves. She picks up a can of soda and pays for it, and when she comes back out, she sees that the taxi is gone. Ellie walks to her hostel, trying to pull her luggage up the stairs. She meets a young man named John, who offers his help, but Ellie politely declines. She goes to her room and knocks on the door. The door is opened by a girl named Jocasta. Once inside, Jocasta gives her a glass of wine, then lights a cigarette and the two talk for a while. In the next scene, Jocasta is seen talking to three other girls. Ally comes in and Jocasta introduces her to the girls. He makes fun of her outfit and reveals that both of their mothers are dead. When the girl asks how Ally lost her mother, she reveals that her mother committed suicide, and they both sympathize. Jocasta becomes jealous and also tells the girls that the same thing happened to his mother, and the girls sympathize with her as well. Ally then goes to the fridge to put away a can of soda, but she sees that it is filled with things with Acosta's name written on them. Jocasta then goes in there and picks up a Sharpie and writes Ally's name on it. The scene changes and the five girls are seen going to a bar, where Ellie feels uncomfortable. John also goes to the bar and greets her, to which she responds. After this, Ellie walks away from the girls and goes to another part of the bar and looks in the mirror. In the mirror, she sees a man looking at her, but when she turns around he has disappeared. Ellie then goes to the ladies' room. There, a girl comes in and Jocasta is mocking her once again. Ellie walks out of the bar, and on the other side of the street, her eyes fall on a silver-headed man who smiles at her, but she looks away. However, later, when she turns back she is seen smiling. In the next scene, she is lying on her bed when Jocasta suddenly walks in with a man. Ellie leaves the room and comes downstairs. She sits down in the lounge, where a boy approaches her and criticizes her choice of music, but John silences him. When the boy leaves, John introduces himself to Ellie. John shows her the can of soda he took out of the refrigerator with her name on it, and she gives it to him and continues her music. The next morning, Ellie wakes up in the lounge and realizes she overslept. She rushes to class, but finds that the classrooms are full. Then she notices John, who offers her a free seat, and she takes it. However, she was not aware of attendance being recorded and asks the professor what the question was, causing Jocasta to laugh. After classes, she gets a call from Paige, who asks her about her experience in London so far. Ellie lies and tells her that everything is going well. While answering the phone, she notices a poster on the floor that says a bedside for women to rent and picks it up. In the next scene, she goes to Soho to look for a bedside. When she gets to the place, she rings the doorbell and meets Mrs. Collins, who lets her in and tells her some rules. Mrs. Collins shows her the room and asks if she has ever been in any trouble. As they sit down for tea, Mrs. Collins asks her if she can pay the rent and asks for 2 months advance payment. Ellie then moves in with Mrs. Collins. She unpacks and prepares for bed. She turns off the lights and puts on music, but the light from the sign outside the room won't let her sleep, so she turns over and pulls a sheet over her head, but somehow falls into a dreamlike trance. In the dream, she walks through a tunnel and into the streets and arrives in front of the Café de Paris, where the doorman lets her in. When she goes in, a manager takes her coat, but she sees a blonde woman named Sandy repeating her actions. Sandy walks down the stairs into the hall when a man approaches her and asks her to come with him and his friends. She turns around and says she wants to meet the owner, to which Sandy replies that he is the owner, but she is suspicious of him. Sandy goes to the bar and talks to the bartender. She asks about the owner and tells him that she wants to be the main performer even though she is new. The bartender tells her to talk to a man named Jack, who oversees several women. She goes to the end of the bar and Jack approaches her. She introduces herself and tells him her intentions, and Jack tells her that she has to work hard to move up. He asks her how well she dances, and then she goes to the middle of the hall and they both dance. He then offers her to join him in an event, which she agrees to, but the man who approached her earlier comes again and asks her to dance. Sandy refuses, and when Jack comes to rescue her, a fight ensues. Jack then grabs her and they both run away. They begin to make love, and then people outside the cafe start to watch them. Jack drops her home and asks her to meet him the next day. Sandy goes to her room where Eli is and goes to sleep. Eli reaches out to touch the sleeping Sandy and her alarm goes off, ending her dream. In the next scene, John and Eli look at the design Eli made that Sandy wore in her dream. Jocasta approaches her and makes a lewd comment. As she leaves school, John tells her that he likes her design. He asks her if she has any plans later that night, and she replies that she sure does. At night, she goes into a dream trance again, where Jack is coming in late but he apologizes and takes her to an audition. She proves to be a great singer and surprises both Jack and the owner of the place. Again, Eli is woken up by her alarm. Later, Ellie gets her hair dyed like Sandy's and sends the picture to Paige. Ellie's lecturer looks at Ellie's design, gives expert advice, and then compliments her hair. Later, she goes to a boutique to try on the clothes she wore in Sandy's dream. She notices a pub and goes in to ask for a job, but is sent to the owner who asks some questions. Ellie notices the silver-headed man she saw earlier staring at her. When she leaves the pub, the man follows her and asks about her mother because she looks familiar, to which she replies that her mother is dead and leaves. She goes inside and Mrs. Collins doesn't recognize her at first because of her hair. Ellie prepares to sleep, and in her dream, she is sitting in the audience waiting for the singer to perform. When the curtain rises, she is disappointed to see that Sandy is not singing. Ellie gets up and goes into the dressing room, where Sandy is smoking a cigarette. She breaks the picture glass and hears a knock on the door. Jack is on the other side and takes her with him. He introduces her to a man who asks her out for a drink. When Sandy protests and leaves, Jack follows her and tries to convince her. Ellie runs into a room. In the room, Sandy is sleeping on the bed. The man who had asked her out for a drink comes out of the toilet and attempts to touch her. Ellie screams to be left alone, and when the man looks at Ellie, her alarm goes off. She wakes up in fear and tries to turn off the alarm, but the man grabs her hand and says he knows she is not asleep. Her alarm goes off again and she really wakes up. In the next scene, as she walks to class, she remembers Sandy's life and rips up the dress she made. A lecturer tries to convince her not to do so. Later, John comes to her work for a drink and asks about her. He also asks where she lives at the moment and offers to listen to her. Then she gets a call from Peggy, who says that Ellie doesn't call her anymore, and Ellie confesses that she is now working in a pub. After the call, the silver-haired man comes up to her and calls her by her full name, Eloise, and hands her the design she left at the pub and leaves. Later, she asks her employer if he believes in ghosts, and her employer replies, no. A scared Ellie goes home and prepares to sleep. Then her trance begins. Jack comes in and drags her away. Sandy looks upset as Jack tells her to mind her own business, and she goes inside dancing, and soon she meets a man who takes her to his table and offers her champagne. Sandy dances again, and men come up to her asking for her name, but she tells them her fake name. But the last man she meets asks for her real name and tells her to leave the life she's living. Shortly after, Ellie wakes up in fear. However, it was still night, and then she looks in the ceiling mirror and sees Sandy. She panics and runs to her bathroom, but when she gathers the courage to go back in, it's already daytime. She closes the door and goes back to her bathroom, but when she opens it, she sees ghosts of men, causing her to scream in fear. In the next scene, she walks to school and is approached by John, who asks her to walk outside, and she agrees. They go to a Halloween party, and Jocasta gives them each a drink with a suspicious smile on her face. Allie and John have fun dancing until Allie starts seeing ghosts. She gets scared and runs outside to get some air, but still sees Sandy and Jack. John follows her and helps her. The two of them go to the bedsit where Allie lives, and when they get out, she starts having flashbacks to when a man with a knife murdered Sandy, and John was scared and driven away by Mrs. Collins. The next day, Allie asks Mrs. Collins if anyone died in her room, to which she gives a vague answer. She tries to go back upstairs but sees Jack's ghost. She then changes her mind and goes to school. John looks at her strangely. However, while working on her dress, she starts seeing ghosts. She runs out of class and into the streets, but sees ghosts everywhere she looks. She runs to the police station and tells the police how she witnessed a murder in the 1960s, and the cops think she's crazy. She decides to go to the library and look for evidence on her own, but finds nothing. John comes to give her her things, and she tells him about her visions and how she suspects the silver-haired man of her murder. He offers help and leaves, but she starts seeing ghosts again. While trying to run away from the ghosts and save herself, she almost stabs Jocasta, but John stops her. She then flees the scene and sees Sandy's ghost, whom she chases. She follows him until she touches Sandy and is pushed to the ground. When she wakes up, she sees a silver-haired man, whom she thinks is Jack, and she follows him. He goes to the pub where she works, and she asks him about Sandy, recording the conversation. She tells him that she knows what he did to Sandy, and he agrees that Sandy was responsible for what happened to her. The man leaves the bar to leave and is hit by a car. Allie learns that his name is not Jack. Later, Allie goes to a call station to call Peggy, who promises to pick her up and take her home. She decides to go home with John. John takes her to Mrs. Collins' house to ask her for help. Allie tells Mrs. Collins that she is going back home, but promises to return the money. Mrs. Collins calms her down and gives her tea. Mrs. Collins tells her that she knows she is seeing ghosts in her room and reveals that she died in that room, and Allie realizes that Mrs. Collins is Sandy. Sandy tells her how she killed Jack and his men. Allie tries to comfort her and apologizes for getting her in trouble with the police. Mrs. Collins tells her it's no problem because the police will think she's crazy, and that she won't tell anyone else because her tea was poisoned. Meanwhile, John keeps ringing the doorbell and is later led in by Sandy, who stabs him as soon as he comes in. Ellie comes close to protest, but Sandy slashes her with a knife and tries to choke her to death. Meanwhile, Ellie has set the house on fire. Ellie crawls up the stairs to an upstairs room to escape Mrs. Collins, where she is surrounded by the ghosts of the dead men Mrs. Collins murdered. The dead men urge Ellie to kill them. Sandy sees the dead men in the room and tells Ellie that she didn't plan on this life. Sandy tries to commit suicide, but even though Ellie tries to stop her, she drags Ellie out of the burning house. Ellie crawls to John, who is still conscious. Luckily, the fire department breaks down the door in time to rescue Eloise, while Sandy stays in the burning house, waiting to die. In the next scene, a group of models show off some new clothes designed by Eloise. John was in the crowd cheering them on. Everyone around was congratulating Eloise for her incredible work. Peggy and John came to congratulate her as well. She turns back and sees Sandy's ghost kissing her goodbye.